So hi, my name's Will and I'm the comms officer here at Integrity Systems Company, and I'll be hosting this webinar for you guys tonight. Quick housekeeping things. Basically, this session's going to be recorded, and everyone who is registered for this webinar will get emailed the recording for this webinar, plus the slides and any of the questions and answers that we get tonight. We'll also put that in a PDF and send that to you as well after the webinar. It does take a few days for us to get that all together, so don't expect it necessarily tomorrow, but within the next week, you should receive that email with everything in it. The other thing that I'd like to sort of say is down the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. And that's basically where you can ask your questions. Now, we have a pretty good team here today, so feel free to ask any questions. We have some people from Agriculture Victoria plus Integrity Systems Company. So use that Q&A box to ask your questions. We will try to cover off as much as we can in the webinar, but if you have anything that you need more clarity on, feel free to ask that just by clicking that box down the bottom. Now, we'll just run through the agenda quickly for tonight. So we have a few presenters tonight. So we have myself being your host. Then we've got Elizabeth Bradley, who is our Quality, Policy and Compliance Manager here at Integrity Systems Company. We also have John Azimus with us today, and he is our Digital Product Manager. We also have Natasha Terry, who is our Operations Manager, who will take you through sort of that NLIS Database Uplift Project. And then we have Ben Fay, who will give you the state partner update. And he's the Livestock Traceability Manager for Agriculture Victoria. So really good team. So just to go through quickly what we're doing. So the LPA update, we'll go through the sharing geolocations. And this is for the new EU deforestation regulations that are proposed to come in next year. We'll also go through the animal welfare management plan, so how you actually create one and how that works within LPA, dairy QA. We'll go through a few of the eNVD updates. So we have a few new features based on feedback that we've had, and I believe even some of the feedback for those new features came through through last year's webinar series. And then basically, we'll go through a little bit about sheep and goat eID, so what's happening in the other states. The NLIS Database Uplift will show you the new NLIS Database Uplift, and so you can get a bit of a look and a feel before it's sort of released, probably next year. And then the state partner update. So one more thing before we go through, just a little bit of an overview of ISC. So basically, Integrity Systems Company, we look after Australia's red meat integrity systems, which comprises of these three programs here. So you've basically got your LPA, your eNVDs or NVDs, the paper version, and your NLIS. So your LPA is that sort of baseline on-farm verification or certification, just to make sure that you are meeting the minimum requirements of the industry. Your eNVD is your transfer, or your document that you fill out before you send the animals off, and that basically communicates the food safety and treatment status of each of the animals and the consignments that you're sending out. And then you have the NLIS database. So this is where all of your tags are essentially registered to. And it's essentially the database where we are moving those tags or animals from one property to another property on that NLIS database. And that allows us to basically trace and know where animals are. So in the case of a food safety outbreak, that we can track them down. These things also have some really great additional benefits, which are to basically, we want to improve these systems so that they increase Australia's market access overseas. And to do that, we have to continuously meet customer expectations. So those expectations are only getting higher over time. And it's our job to make sure that we are meeting those customer expectations so that we can continue to export to those markets and even domestically. And then ultimately, we just want to ensure that we are providing safe red meat. So that's a quick overview of ISC. So what I'll do is I'll pass it on to our first presenter. So Elizabeth is going to take you through the livestock production assurance and everything that's kind of going on in that space. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Will, and hi everyone. So as Will mentioned, I am going to be talking about LPA and especially some of the key initiatives that we've done in the last little while to kind of improve the program and make sure that we're continuing to meet all of our expectations and requirements. So the three key things that we've done in sort of the last 12 months relate to work to deliver what's required for the European Union's deforestation regulation. So that one applies to beef and cattle in particular. We also brought out a new requirement around an animal welfare management plan in the LPA program to really strengthen that assurance the program provides. And we brought it in last year, sort of in October, but it sort of coincides with the rest of the country coming into sheep and goat EID around a harvested rangeland goat voluntary module in the program. So that one's not super relevant for Victoria, given there's not a lot of capturing happening of wild goats, but it does exist as a module in LPA to enable, harvested rangeland goats to move device-free through to processing. But tonight I'll focus mostly on the geolocations and the animal welfare management plan and a few other little things as well. So to start off with, we'll talk around the European Union's new requirement around deforestation-free supply chains. So this requirement actually comes into force at the end of this year, so the 31st of December. So that means basically product that's making its way through the supply chain at the moment will actually be on the boats headed over to Europe and landing there sort of in December. So it applies now to cattle producers and feedlots and processors at this point in time. So they actually have to provide extra information for those exports from the 31st of December. The regulations are a little bit unique in that it doesn't actually apply to other countries. It actually applies to the importer or the person who puts the product on the market for sale in the EU. So in our case, we deal with importers in the EU, and those importers have to provide documentation around deforestation-free to bring the product into the country. So if you are a cattle producer, we're urging everyone to jump in and share a geolocation. The EU market is a high value market for Australia. It's worth about $150 million a year for beef and beef products. And there's an additional $50 million estimated for the leather and the hides that go into Europe. So think about high value leather brands, you can imagine that will be taking all of that leather. It does sit separate to the EU program that's administered by DAF. So the EU program, or UCAS, it looks after the hormone freedom and assuring lifetime traceability of cattle that end up in the European Union. So this EUDR, or the deforestation regulation, sits separate from that. It's actually not part of our trade agreement with Europe. It's actually a different mechanism through which they're requesting this information. We do have the information because we have such great systems in NLIS and LPA to be able to do this. But what it does mean is that we need to provide the geolocation of every property that cattle has been raised in its lifetime through that supply chain to enable that import. So for a cattle producer, that means you can log into LPA and share your geolocation and also permission that sharing of that geolocation through the NLIS database. So we try to keep it as limited as information as we possibly can to protect privacy, and also the retrieval of those geolocations is limited to processors and feedlots who need to check that information and pass it on to importers. So it's really important if you do have cattle, even if you're not in the EU program, to jump in and do it, because leather and hides can come from any animal. Victoria and New South Wales do have a lot, especially around that Geelong area. There's a lot of hides that get processed in Geelong. So those hides can come from any cattle, not just those ones in the EU program, which means that more people and more producers sharing their geolocation will really help ensure that the leather and hide industry can continue to go to the EU, and also that our exports for the beef and beef products can continue uninhibited as well. It doesn't assess deforestation status, that sits with the importer, to do their due diligence on that. But we have been classed as low risk by the European Union as well. So there's very few consignments that will get verified each year as well. So it's a bit of a tricky one, but at a minimum for cattle producers, it's definitely just jumping in and sharing that geolocation as the biggest help. How you do it, it's really simple. Through your LPA account, you can log in. We have some prompts on the screen that will take you directly to the place where you can basically pin your location on a map. It'll default to your address that you've provided in your LPA account. You can basically pick the point or the little spot that you want to pin it at and save it, and then the systems and the databases do the rest. So it is required for exports from the 31st of December. So that means that if there's cattle in feedlots, but you raise those cattle, then you need to share so those animals are still eligible for the EU as well. So a really important one. If you haven't heard any comms about it, we urge you to jump on and share if you can. So that's EUDR. If you have any questions, pop them into Q&A. I'm sure we can get to them as well. The other one I want to talk to you about tonight is the Animal Welfare Management Plan requirement. So this requirement is our newest addition to the LPA program. In order to make sure that we can continue to supply and our market access isn't ever impeded, we need to continue to meet our customer expectations in relation to lots of different things, and animal welfare is one of those. So industry came to us and said that they really wanted to look at animal welfare and how we prove our animal welfare assurance through the program. We built a tool to make sure that it was easy, dynamic, and as streamlined as possible for producers to be able to complete. It has been available since the 23rd of June for completion, and from the 1st of September, so very soon, auditors will be checking to see if animal welfare management plans have been completed or not. We worked really hard with industry to co-design the tool and the completion of it to make sure that we could make it easy to complete and comply. So the Animal Welfare Management Plan tool has been built based on the animal welfare standards and guidelines, and these exist nationally and help harmonise our welfare legislation in Australia. It covers off a bunch of things like responsibilities, feed and water, risk management that applies to every property. And then there's specific requirements around species, so what husbandry practices you might perform in relation to your relevant animals. So if you just have cattle, you'll only get questions about cattle. If you just have goats, you'll just get questions about goats, etc. In relation to the tool itself, it actually asks you to confirm your species and then what those practices are to make sure that you don't get asked unnecessary questions as well. We're just going to play a short video now just to be able to show you how to complete the tool and a little bit more background about it.
There's a new animal welfare tool for the Livestock Production Assurance program. The Animal Welfare Management Plan makes LPA accreditation and reaccreditation clearer about ensuring good animal health and welfare outcomes. There will be some extra questions in the self-assessment when you renew accreditation every 2 years, but the underlying requirements haven't changed, and there's no extra cost. With Livestock Production Assurance, Australia's cattle, sheep and goat producers already commit to Australia's animal welfare standards. The new tool gives consumers and our markets a stronger basis for preferring our red meat. So let's see how it works. Log in to your LPA account. Click on Record Keeping at the bottom of the screen. Or just go to Account and select Record Keeping. Choose the Animal Welfare Management Plan option. Confirm your on-farm activities, and from here the questions are tailored specifically for the livestock you work with. If you produce sheep, you won't get questions about cattle or goats. You'll be asked to read the relevant animal welfare standards for each section and answer questions with either multiple choice or free text answers. Guidance and links are at each question to help. Once you've completed it, an Animal Welfare Management Plan document will be created. You can then download it as a PDF, but it'll also be stored in your LPA account for easy access and updating. It'll be available anytime via record keeping. The Animal Welfare Plan tool is available for completion anytime in your LPA account. You'll need to do this as part of your reaccreditation, and it'll form part of LPA audits. The Livestock Production Assurance program is all about improving transparency and traceability for Australian red meat and backs the standards we uphold in Australia, including animal welfare. The Animal Welfare Management Plan gives our markets more confidence that our producers are delivering animal welfare to the best standards in the world. For more information, head to the Animal Welfare page on the Integrity Systems website. integritysystems.com.au/on-farm-assurance/animal welfare.
Okay, that's the video, just to kind of explain how it works. So it is available in your LPA account through the record keeping section, or if you don't get to it, it will be available, or it will be part of your accreditation next time you complete that as well. So the questions will just automatically appear there. Just a quick note here, we had some media come out around working dogs and LPA. We just wanted to reiterate that there's no restrictions on working dogs through this Animal Welfare Management Plan. The sheep standards do allude that, the use of dogs and handling aids is limited to the minimum needed to complete the task, which is just common sense. And the questions in the Animal Welfare Management Plan reflect that as well. So just wanted to put that out there and make sure that everyone was clear about that requirement. In terms of the Animal Welfare Management Plan, we understand it's a transition period for producers because it is asking you to do something else. Once you do the plan once, you can go back in and update it, so you won't have to keep, repeating or filling it out again and again. So in the last 2 months or 3 months, we've had the tool available to complete. But as I mentioned earlier, from the 1st of September, if you do get picked for an LPA audit, you will have, and you don't have the Animal Welfare Management Plan completed, you'll just be required to complete that as part of the audit process, and given some time afterwards as well to make sure you get it in place. It doesn't take a very long time. It's very common sense. There's lots of guidance embedded, and it really helps us set that stage and make sure we can show the rest of the world how we do what we do so well, which is really important to maintain our access to all those markets. Well, that's about Animal Welfare Management Plan. I just wanted to touch on a little mini makeover that we had to one of our other little programs, which is the dairy QA recognition we have through the LPA program. So if you're a dairy farmer, nothing realistically changes. We've just updated the IT system to make it a bit easier to opt in and then opt out if you do have a dairy processor recognition. So this one does, if you do operate a dairy farm, you can link your dairy processor or license with your LPA accreditation, and that just exempts from paying the LPA accreditation fee and also from being selected for random audits, because there's audits that are happening under the dairy framework. The dairy QA program doesn't exempt you from having targeted audits if there's a residue or a traceability issue, but it does give that just streamlining where there's multiple audits happening in industry. And that's the other one to mention as well, which was a little bit, in the media as well, is around LPA and infrastructure, especially in relation to renewable infrastructure or any type of infrastructure and equipment you have on your property. So just as a note here, LPA does not restrict or prohibit renewable energy infrastructure on grazing land. All LPA asks or looks at is when you complete your property risk assessment as your normal part of LPA accreditation, to make sure that you're considering all the different types of infrastructure you have on your property and monitoring it to make sure that, if it's breaking down or degrades with age, that's captured in your monitoring programs. There's no requirement around declaring renewable energy infrastructure on NVDs, and it's not checked at LPA audits. So we just wanted to make that really clear as well around some of the media that has been talking about it. But that is the end of my talk. So I'm going to hand over to John, who's going to run you through some really cool improvements to the eNVD. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Good evening, guys. As Will mentioned at the start, I'm the Digital Product Manager for ISC, and we look after all 3 products that Will mentioned and manage the changes that are going into each of those products. The segment that I've got is specifically just looking at the eNVD web improvements that we've done. One of them was released a couple of months ago around the integration, and the next one we're actively looking at, and we'll release that change in the next couple of months. Just a quick slide in terms of just over looking at both these features that I just mentioned. Just to call out that we're actively looking at eNVD and investing a lot of time and money into this product in particular, as we see it as a good opportunity to move the industry into a more digital footprint. The 2 key improvement areas that we're looking at, one is the integration with NLIS and making it much easier for users to look at consignments and do the necessary movement that you're obligated to do as a receiver through eNVD, and saving you the hassle of going out of eNVD into NLIS to do the subsequent movement. We looked at the 2 systems and saw that there was a synergy between the information that you enter with the eNVD and seeing the similarities with the required movement with NLIS. So we thought it'd be a good opportunity to bring those 2 systems a little bit closer together and hopefully save a bit of time in your compliance activities when dealing with those 2 systems. The second one that we're looking at is around the pick search. So another pain point that we've kind of listened to people is the ability or inability to find picks, destination picks. So we're looking at ways of improving that and making it a little bit easier for you guys to find that destination pick, realizing that everyone knows their own pick, but not necessarily the pick of the destination that you're moving livestock to. So we'll go through kind of our thoughts around that and keep an eye out for those changes coming out in the next couple of months. Next slide, please. So just to start with the integration piece that I mentioned before, we see this as a perfect opportunity when you're doing those property-to-property transfers. It's purely voluntary. And we split it into two parts of it. Looking at the receiver, so if you're receiving an eNVD, just highlighting the benefits of that. As I mentioned before, you can do the livestock transfer directly from eNVD. So you don't need to go into NLIS to do that movement. And when I go through the demo, I can highlight that process for you quickly. The other benefit is if the sender of the consignment has chosen to put the devices onto the movement, you can see those devices as soon as they submit that consignment. So it gives you a bit of a heads up, and you can have a look at the devices that are coming with that movement. So as I mentioned before, when I go through the demo, we'll be able to highlight any warnings or errors that could potentially hold up that movement when you receive it. So as soon as those devices get added, you get forewarning of them, you can review them and then compare them to what you actually receive in the consignment. The other side to it is obviously as a sender, and this is completely voluntary. As I said, you have the opportunity to add the devices that are going along with that consignment. So it's a good opportunity to get those devices, add them onto the eNVD, and also aid in that kind of reconciliation process and making sure that when you're having a look at your devices on pick and you're doing pick recs, that they're as up to date as they possibly can. So I think the next step here is just to give you a quick demo of what I've just been talking about. So I will just share my screen. and we'll go through it quickly. Okay, so as I mentioned, there's two sides of it. So in the demo, I'll create a consignment as a sender. And as always, creating a consignment from a template is the quickest and easiest way to do that within the web. So what I'll do is I'll just select a pre-selected template. I'll just add in the date that they're moving of today.
Hi, John.
Yep.
It's not sharing at the moment.
All right.
You
Oops,
just
sorry.
tried. Yeah.
Is that better?
It's coming. Yep, that's
Coming
better.
through? Okay.
Perfect.
I'll go back through and start that again. Sorry, guys. So I've just created a consignment off a template. What I'll do is just add in the details that are unique to the consignment. So I've added in the date. What I do also is just then go and edit the details of the consignment. So for the purposes of this demo, I'll just be moving 19 head of cattle. They've all got ear tags and there's no room in devices. Okay, and then the last thing that I need to do is just hit the declaration. All right, and then it's ready to submit. So once that's submitted, you can see that we have this new banner here, which gives you the opportunity to add the devices. So all you need to do is to select this button here. And we give you two ways of providing that information. One is to upload the file. So if you've got a session that you've read out of a device reader that represents that consignment, or you keep the IDs in another area within your systems or in your book, you can either upload the file or you have the opportunity to manually enter them. For this demo, we'll just add a file. It's as simple as just choosing that file from a place within your computer, load it up, and then hit next step. And what this does is just does a quick check against NLIS to give us a status back. So as you can see here, I've loaded up the devices and all the devices are okay. But we don't always live in a perfect world. So what I'll do is I'll just also demonstrate what happens if you load devices and there are some warnings and errors that come up. So I'll just select a different file this time. And then just go through the same step. And as you can see here, we've got a couple of bits of information that we're playing back to you. So we can see that we've loaded 22 devices. One of them's got an error and a couple have got a warning. So this is just a representation of some of the checks that we do against NLIS. Here is one. This is obviously a bad read or an incorrect ID. So as you can see, it's just calling out that it's an invalid ID and we don't recognize it within NLIS. So if we can have the opportunity to either edit that if it's a bad read or delete it. For this instance, we'll just delete that. The next one, this area is showing you that the device that you've added onto the consignment is actually not on your pick. So this may be the animal's moved on, you forgot to do the transfer. So we just call that out and we think this is useful to make known so that it saves a bit of time and effort when these animals go onto the receiver, and that we want to make sure that that all the movements are correctly put into NLIS. So again, for this one, if it's just been added incorrectly, we can delete it, or obviously you can transfer it onto your property and then do the load again and it'll come up as a green tick. So we'll just delete this one. And then the final one is if you're operating in cross species or you've got multiple species on your farm and you've added in in the read, there's a sheep that's been scanned. This is the cattle consignment. We can also just call out that you've added the wrong species as well. Again, making sure that the information is as correct as possible before you push it onto the receiver. So for this, we'll just get rid of that one as well. And then you can see that we've got all our green ticks. So as far as a sender, that's all you need to do. if we switch over to being the receiver side of the consignment, I'll just switch profiles within LPA, and you can see that this consignment is in here. It's coming as an incoming, and you can see from the icon and from the new column within eNVD that we've got tags have been added and they're ready for you to review. So if I'm on the LPA profile here, which normally most of you guys will operate with, and I go and have a look at the devices, you can see full visibility of the information that's been added to by the sender, and you can see all the ticks. What it's actually playing back to you at the top here is that for us to do the movement within NLIS, you need to switch your profile within LPA to the NLIS one. And if you haven't linked, so that means that you need to link your NLIS and your LPA accounts together within MyMLA. If you don't know that, there's a guide to do that we can push you through, or the comms team have lots of collateral on our website on how to do that. If you stay in this profile, you'll notice that you won't be able to do anything and you won't be able to move these devices onto your pick. So it's really important that you switch the profile. So to do that, we just go back to this page here, go and select your NLIS profile, and you'll see it underneath the indicator here. And then once you switch that, you'll then notice that you have the opportunity to complete the movement. So if you go down to the bottom and you're okay with everything that's been added, all you need to do is just move on to your pick, and then it's submitted on the NLIS. So just to reiterate, that's all you need to do. You don't need to log into NLIS. If you want to go in and view that movement again and get some more detail, you can see that the movement is complete within the system. If you want some more details about it, the upload ID for reference, a visual representation of the movement, this is all played back to you, and also a quick link into if you want to log into NLIS. Okay. The other, I'll just stop sharing. The other area that we've been looking at, as I mentioned, is the pick search. So obviously, with looking at the pick search, we look at the data coming from the states around the pick registry. As we know, that across multiple jurisdictions, there's always different sets of information that we get from the states. So it makes it a little bit hard to get a really nice, clean search around, identifying picks if you don't have that information, the pick number. So one good pattern that we found talking to users is that they like the ability to be able to do filters, and that filter option is available in the app now, where you can select the state that you're interacting with, and also the pick type, and then that funnels down the information that you need to then find the specific pick that you're dealing with. So what we are doing is we're kind of extending that a little bit within the app, but also pushing it over to the web so that it's consistent across the platforms. So just to give you a bit of a flavor of what it's going to look like within the web, I've just got a quick prototype here. So what we're doing is instead of just being reliant on putting the pick number in, we'll give you 3 options around what you can do depending on the information that you have to hand. The first one is that we're going to bring in the ability to have a look at recent destinations, and we feel like this will probably be the most used option. And if you know the destination that you've done before, we can play back the last 10, and you can just select from that list. The second option is I know the pick number, and that's much the same as what you have access to right now. So you can just bang the pick in and it will give you that option. The third one is if you haven't used the destination before and you don't know the pick, but you have some details, we will play back the same kind of filter pattern that we looked at with the app. So we'll get you to select the state that you're operating in. You'll be able to select the pick type that you're dealing with. So in this case, it's a sale yard. Put in the town type, or the postcode, and then we will narrow it down and we'll give you that option to be able to select that pick so that you know that you're getting the right destination. Okay, I think that's it for me. Thanks, Will.
Thank you, John. Okay, so I'm just going to do a very quick sort of almost intermission, but quick bit on sheep and goat EID. So up until now, if we've gone through already quite a lot, so hopefully you've been able to retain as much as you can. But if you haven't, again, just calling out, we will be sending through the recording and all the question and answers and everything in a pack that will be emailed to you in the next week. So keep that in mind if you're kind of thinking, oh, this is a lot. Perfect. So sheep and goat EID, like for Victoria, you guys are pretty well across it, but this is kind of what's happening in the other states. So basically, all sheep and goats born after the 1st of Jan 2025 must have an EID nationally. And then basically, from the 1st of Jan 2027, all livestock nationally must have an EID. So that is kind of what's going on in all the other states. So they're all kind of working that out. There is a few, Western Australia does have a slightly different time frame, but apart from that, it's all pretty much the same. So just keeping that in mind if you are receiving or getting livestock from those states, that's kind of what's happening there. So next up, we have Natasha, who is going to take us through the new NLIS database and what's to come there.
Well, yes, we're looking at the new NLIS Database Uplift Project. The core thing to call out here is that currently the statistics for ISC is showing that 77% of producers are unaware we are actually uplifting the new database and looking at a new one in the very near future. Next slide, please, Bridget. Yes, so let's take it back a bit. It was the year 2000. We were all worried about Y2K and what was going to happen to our money in the bank and whether the entire computer system was going to fail. We were all on our Nokia 3310 and playing a lot of snakes. So that was quite a while ago. And what else was happening? The NLIS was released. So this was 25 years ago. So a lot has changed since then. So why are we uplifting the database? Well, it's about protecting market access and food safety. It's a key tool in Australia's defence against exotic diseases, and we all know how important that is. It's getting a bit past it, probably a bit like me. It's over 25 years old. We're building for the future, so we're future-proofing livestock traceability for the decades to come. It has an improved user experience. So if you're currently using the NLIS database, you'll see it's got like just these huge drop-down menus that has heaps of information and can make it hard to look through. And the core purpose and functionality won't change. It's just with a modernised, more secure infrastructure. As we well know, in the year 2025, we have some nasty bad actors that are quite keen on cyber threats. So we're ensuring that we're increasing the security of the infrastructure. And we're tracking towards a 30 June 2026 go live, and this has been supported by a $22.5 million funding grant from the Australian government. So what will it help with? We're hoping to see increased traceability due to the improved usability. It will be an easier to use system. We're hoping that nobody likes to sit around the computer all day trying to get the job done, and we're hoping it will speed up and make you more accurate when you're working on the database. It'll be able to upload large files, and you might say, but I'm a small producer. Well, when we've got devices being uploaded, those are massive files and they can take time, so it will improve the speed of those large uploads. It gives us the ability to access data quickly and efficiently. It'll have improved data quality and will be easier to maintain. It'll be easier for integration. So a lot of systems now use APIs directly into NLIS, so that will make it easier for them to connect. And it will continue to keep data safe, secure, and up to date. And we're also looking at providing better reporting and analytics and a more simpler notification process. So a lot of people are unaware that this has actually been a 3-year journey. So this started back in July 2023. We're now currently sitting in the time when we're building. So a lot's gone before you, and it's before us, and it was around what does it need to do, what does it need to be, and what does it need to look like. And then the design, the base design, just like a plan of a house, we had to have a blueprint design. But we're currently building and looking at the stage transition. So now I'm going to pass over to our tech guru, John, as he's the key man when it came to the way that the system looks. So I'll pass to you now, John.
Thanks, Natasha. So as Natasha mentioned, what we're trying to do with the new system is make it more intuitive and user friendly. So as you can see, the old system, or the current system that we have now, is very functional and people are able to use it, but it's not very intuitive and it takes a long time to find out where you need to go. So as Natasha mentioned, there's lots of drop downs, and it's not as easy as we would like it to make it for you guys. We don't want you in here for a long time. We want you to go in, do the necessary compliance, get the information out if you need to run reports, and then exit and go on your way. So so this is what we've got now, and this is what we're going to in the new system. So I'll just kind of briefly go through the landing page. This is be your entry point for most people as they come into the system, to try and make it, as I mentioned, as easy and get and answer the questions basically off this page if we can. The first, as I'll just go through it and kind of explain the thoughts and what's coming out here. At the top, we'll display everything that's relevant to your pick. If you have multiple picks, you'll be able to toggle between the two properties. We'll play back any statuses against the pick that have been allocated, any programs that you're part of, the species that you've indicated to us that you run on your property. And as we scroll down, this is kind of the main area that we'd like you guys to interact with. There's two main thoughts here. The first one is around just a general search, and this will be the ability to kind of put in any type of reference or link into an action that you might want to do. So to give an example, you might have a transaction ID of something that you've done in the past that you want to just go back and have a look at. To do that, we can click on the search bar, select transaction IDs, put in a transaction ID reference, do the search, and then that will play back that information back to you. So you can see that from this input, we've found a transaction ID. It was done today. It was a movement. We'll play back who did that. And if you need to drill down into a little bit more information, you can hit the view button, and that will play back even more information about that transaction. So we can see that this is a movement. It's a movement of cattle from this pick to this one. 500 head, 320 devices. The eNVD references there as well. Any NVD that you've loaded up against that can be displayed as well. And then we can go and drill down into the devices that have been added to that movement. So that's just an indication of the pattern. If you've got some kind of information, but you don't know exactly where to go, you can bang it into that search bar and we'll play back any kind of potential matches to it. The second one is around quick actions. So we know from looking at lots of other well-used websites that playing back the most popular things that you want to do with the system is a good pattern to use. So we want to present those quick actions via these big buttons, and you can customize this to your kind of how you using NLIS. So as you can see, the other thing to call out too is we're trying to generalize and make the language that we're using within the system consistent. So you can see here that rather than doing transfers or doing multiple different transactions to represent a movement, we're going to bundle those transactions or those types of movements together so that you've got one place to do it and call it record livestock movement. We're shifting away from the references of tags to devices so that it's more inclusive of all the types of tracking devices that we have currently within NLIS. And livestock inquiry is an example of how we're generalizing or making more meaningful terms. So at the moment, this report is called beast inquiry, but obviously cattle is not the only species that we deal with within NLIS. And again, you can, in this example, pick reconciliation. So that may be another thing that you do common or want to bubble up to as a quick action. As we scroll down the landing page, we can represent all the latest all the last 5 latest movements within your pick so that you can visually reconcile that with what you know has happened on your property and make sure that if you're moving off, the receiver's done the necessary transaction, or moving on once you've done them and you know that you've done your compliance obligation there. As we go down, we can play back any kind of important notifications to you through the notification card. Also incoming and outgoing eNVDs. So we're trying to integrate eNVD more within NLIS and make these more visible to the user. Finally, we have a graphical representation of the devices on the pick. So this is kind of like your current holdings on your pick. And we can play that back through a graph so that you can see that if it's growing and you know that you're moving off, then there's obviously something going wrong with the movements that have been recorded on your pick or off your pick. And also a good kind of call to action to do that pick reconciliation and make sure that you correctly updated everything that's going on with your pick. Okay. Thanks, Natasha.
Thanks, John. Just wait for it to come back. So there's been a lot of discussion about our consultation and engagement and how we actually got feedback on the different systems of what we've come up with, the UX UI experience that John was talking about. So just to highlight, there's been 3 rounds of usability testing. So that was where we tried different concepts, different designs to come up with the design that we've settled on. There's 4 levels of governance across the project. So that's the industry reference group, states and territories reference group, which Victoria is part of, and the technical reference committee. And then on top of that sits the NUG group that are the senior governance within that, within those governance groups. There's been over 135 plus hours of engagement specifically with the industry reference group since March 2024. And we've been attending quite a few different events and any chance that we have to give people the opportunity to be able to see what the system looks like and start getting more comfortable with the way that it looks. So we will continue to be at all these events. Examples were the ECA show, the Sydney Easter show, any of the different things run by MLA or where we've partnered with different people. But if you see us out and about, please just come up and say, hey, can I have a look at the new NLIS, and we'd be happily take you through it and listen to your feedback. So what does it mean for me as a producer? Look, we've had a lot of feedback where people have said, hey, it's taken me 20 years to get my head around the last database and now you're changing it. So the new look NLIS database is designed to be simpler and easier to use, but we recognise it will be a big change for some. We're not just going to run you blind out there. There's a detailed training plan which is being developed at the moment, and we will share those details with you as soon as they are available. We plan to assist producers and industry with the various how-to guides, training webinars, hands-on demonstration and examples, and regular updates and opportunities to ask questions. And just a reminder, On top of all this, we have our ISC team available to support you at our contact centre. We have a 24/7 chatbot. We also have people waiting on the phone between 7 and 7 in the weekdays and 9 to 5 on the weekends. And we also have, as John mentioned, a huge number of resources available on our website. But don't just keep this to yourself. Share it with your neighbours. Have a chat. It's always good to have a discussion with your neighbours about some of this stuff. I'll now pass on to Ben.
Thanks, Natasha. And thank you for all those updates. I think, as you said, Natasha, the database uplift is a really important part of making sure that our database is fit for purpose for every user, whether it's producers, anyone in the supply chain, but also government and industry in trying to manage livestock as they go through the supply chain. So it's great to see all that work that's going on. I was just going to go through some quick slides on how your data actually is used in the event that we have an issue. And those issues can range from food safety issues, market access problems, disease management, residue, and also ensuring that livestock are fit to meet market specifications and safe. Just touching on the requirements for sheep and goats as well, we're just making sure that producers do update all their records on the NLIS database. Will and John went through the importance of that. And I suppose the one reminder is that where NVDs are filled in and eNVDs are now, or hopefully soon able to take the RFID or the tag detail as you send them on to the receiver or the next owner, that doesn't automatically mean that the transfer is done on the database. So we still need to see that transfer done on the database. And you'll see why that's really important for us in the next couple of slides. As we see other states and territories come on board with electronic identification of sheep and goats, we will see more sheep and goats come through with electronic tag. And I suppose the photo there is a reminder to just make sure that you check to make sure that the animal doesn't already have an electronic tag in its ear, and therefore we're not having two tags, electronic tags put in their ear. The blue one was the breeder one, and the one on the left of the screen is a post-breeder tag that was put in by a producer, not knowing that they were both, or the blue one was electronic tag. So just make sure that we're not getting two tags in. The electronic system allows for one tag, whole of life traceability for it. I was just going to go through an exercise, or not an exercise, but how we would trace animals, and just to give you an idea of how important getting access to accurate and timely data is. This is a number of moves that were recorded on the NLIS database in 2024. So almost 100 million livestock moved throughout the country. And I think I saw on one of the questions and answers, someone had posted, just how amazing the database is. There was over 4 million consignments and 145,000 different picks that those animals went to. So it's a massive data set, and as Natasha said, it's about ensuring that the uplift to the database makes that so much more user friendly, whilst keeping all the ability to record this information. There's just a snapshot of one day, all the livestock movements. This is cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs. And the various different places they've moved to and from in Australia. So it just gives you an idea of the complexity, and as I said, how well that database functions. For states and territory governments, we do have to trace from time to time. And as I said, that may be a disease event, maybe residues, maybe contamination on a property, and maybe providing evidence to trading partners that we have a robust traceability system. What I've done is I've chosen a random property located in the Ballarat area. I'm based in Ballarat. And I've mapped it. And what we've said is we want to be able to see if there have been diseased animals on that property, where they may have moved to, and what are the implications for us if we need to start tracing those animals. In the event of disease outbreak, we would tend to put a radius around the known infected property or a property that's affected. And normally that would be a 5K radius that we put around it. And so that then enables us to quickly identify all of the PICs or property identification codes that are carrying susceptible animals in that area. And we can then quickly identify owners as well as what species they've got, a number of animals that are recorded as moving on to that onto those properties. But importantly, it tells us any movements that have occurred off. So as you can see here, we've got over 200 PICs within a 5 kilometre radius of that one property that we're using as an exercise property. And so from that, we can then quickly, from the database, pull off how many animals have moved over a set period of time. And this is displaying in a visual sense what those animals or where those animals have moved to. But behind that is all of the individual data for those animals. So that individual tag information, the PIC that they originated from, the PIC that they then went to, the date that they moved, and importantly, some of the NVD details there that we can quickly look at. So behind all this information, and as you can see, there were 31,000 head moved off in the last 14 days, and they went to 155 new PICs. So if we were concerned about a disease, we would want to quickly be able to identify those PICs, and then that allows governments to quickly start to prioritise which properties we would go and visit to see if there had been disease spread. And as I said, the lines, it looks quite interesting, the lines, but behind that is all the information that sits behind the animals that moved. And each line represents one movement, but there may be hundreds of animals within that movement. So being able to press a button and quickly get accurate and timely data is paramount for us, and supports the wonderful industry that you're all part of. And so your efforts in putting in that moving information and doing it quickly means that we've got a lot of confidence, and we can tell our trading partners and present a really robust traceability system there. I'll leave it there. Thanks, Natasha and ISC team, or Will. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. That was really good to go through that and see that all in real life and how that sort of plays out in practice. So thank you for everyone who has attended today. Quick message, just when you're heading out of the chat, there'll be a survey. If you could fill that in, that would be amazing. But 3 big takeaways from today. If you could go into your LPA and complete your animal welfare management plan and share your geolocation, that would be fantastic. Give eNVD a try if you haven't or have and may be on the fence. Give it another go and try adding a template for any regular consignments. That just speeds up the whole process for yourself. And keep an eye out on the NLIS database. We'll continue to keep you updated on how that's going and when it's coming live, and about the training and everything that we will do as that's coming out. So thank you for everyone who has attended. We'll answer all the questions, and we'll get those questions and answers out to you as well. Thank you.